there, parapeeps, and welcome to another episode of Behind the Haunting. I am your host, Shawn Donnelly.
I'm your co-host, Marianne Donnelly.
That's right, Behind the Hauntings. These are my favorite videos. Yes. For many reasons. But if you are into the paranormal, history, and forensic type videos, that is what we are doing tonight. All into one.
That's right.
And if you care to, go ahead, click the subscribe and like and all that stuff.
Alrighty then.
But tonight's episode is going to be about the St. Valentine's Day Massacre.
Yes. Just in time for Valentine's Day.
Yep. So I thought, this will be an easy subject. Nothing's ever simple.
Especially when we try to put so much background into everything. We want to give you the best information that we can come up with. And so one thing leads to another. That's how research works.
Yes. Yeah. So we do have a lot of background leading up to the actual event.
And we have a few things for after the event.
Yeah, some of the aftermath. And then we're going to go over the paranormal, because there is a lot of paranormal associated with this.
That's right.
Right?
That's right.
Okay.
Absolutely.
Would you like to say who's already joined us? Because we got some people here already.
Well, we have a few people that are here.
There's a bunch of people in chat talking. It says we only have 3 people
I know,
watching.
There's a whole bunch of people in chat here, so I'm not sure what I'm going to find when I click over there. But it says that Desmond Dondras is here, Happy Trails Hiking, Inspire John, Lori Bryant, and me.
Okay.
But if anyone else is there, feel free to say hi, and I'll try to say hi back to you. And let's see, we have super chat from Inspire John.
Yeah,
Freedom of speech. So thank you very much.
I'm going to talk about super chat here in a little bit. He's done made the list.
That's right.
And I'll talk about the list here in a second.
All
right, so a little bit of housekeeping before we get started. We are live, so there is no editing. So Marianne probably is going to, put her nails into my leg because I said something wrong, and she will correct me.
Why not?
That's
what I
job
do
when we're live. Please share this out. We've been sharing it out, but it helps better if you guys share it out too and tell people that we are live. All the content that we are presenting here tonight is going to be linked on the blog post that's going to come out for this. Links to our research and things like that. So, watch for that. That's probably going to come out Friday maybe after the last video of this series. If you haven't seen ourhauntedtravels.com yet, there are blog posts for each of the locations, and all of the videos for that series are in there, and you get to sit there and follow along, and then it has links to the research. So I wanted to mention that. If you haven't attended a Behind the Haunting before, here's how this works. We're going to present the case leading up to the paranormal activity. We're going to be following along in chat as we do this. I think most of this presentation is probably going to be me. Until I get tongue-tied and I said, read that. Okay? And Marianne will be watching the chat. And we'll pause and stop every once in a while and, ask questions and things like that. So it's basically kind of like maybe a forensic type lesson into the case.
Yeah. I think most of what I'm going to talk about today is the forensic piece of it. Okay.
So as we go through, we're going to ask for some feedback during the presentation. All right. Now, after we're done, it's very important. After we're done, at the end, we're going to have some questions. What we want you to do, instead of answering the chat, and if you're watching this on replay, those are your prompts for the comments. Come back and answer the questions in the comments below, because that helps the live stream. Now, we mentioned that maybe 3 or 4 of these ago, and the views took off. I think it was on the Peg one for the Hollywood sign. I mentioned that in there. People came back and put the comments. So it does work. It does, help people who are doing live streams to leave comments afterwards.
Okay.
It tells YouTube that it's, hey, it's like a regular video. Now, Inspire John, it went away, but Inspire John already left a super chat. Thank you again. If you leave a super chat during these live streams, you're going to be put on a list. And when we publish the book, Behind the Haunting, which this is number 10, I said when we get to 15, we'll put them out in a book. Okay. We're going to thank everybody in the book, so your name will be in print. Marianne's looking to see where the notebook is.
Yeah, you stole my notebook.
No, I think it's right back there, but you can write on these.
Okay.
There you go. We have a list from all of them of everybody who's left super chats doing the Behind the Haunting. So appreciate that very much. All right, I think that's it. Are we ready to get started? I see Irish Whiskey Paranormal's here.
I'll be back.
Marianne will be back. We're getting a phone call. All right, we're ready to go. Let's give her just a second to come back here. I see we got 7 here. All right, let's see. I need to get the right screen up. Tanya Lambert says ready. Happy Trails Hiking says ready. Yeah, robocall. Pretty sure that's probably a robocall.
It's work.
Oh, it's work. It's work. Hang up on him. It's work. We were doing good, and then work called.
Yes.
That's about right.
All right.
Anything important from work?
Parent-teacher conferences are Thursday night. If you'd like to schedule an appointment, please call the school to select your teacher.
Yeah, we already knew that.
Yeah, I knew that.
All right. There we go.
Maybe it was a hint that I have to stay at work late that night.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right.
So what'd I miss?
I was waiting on you. I was kind of like stalling. I was going to start singing in a minute, but you were back.
Oh, okay.
All right, everyone's ready. Let's get rolling.
All right, let's do it.
We've wasted enough time. Okay, so has anybody not heard of the St. Valentine's Day Massacre? If you haven't, you're going to know a lot about it by the time we're done.
Yes.
And I hope that you learned something new about it. Yes. But let's talk about what happened. And you know what? I'm going to ask you to read that one. Okay?
Oh, okay.
All right?
Yeah, sure.
So here's what happened.
So basically at 10:30 in the morning on Valentine's Day, it was a Thursday in 1929. So Thursday, February 14th, 1929, 7 men were murdered at the garage at 2122 Clark Street, North Clark Street, by the way, in Lincoln Park neighborhood of Chicago, Illinois. And this was on the north side. Okay. Now they were shot by 4 men who were using weapons that included Thompson machine guns. And that's going to be important later. They were Thompson submachine guns. Everybody calls them Tommy guns, though. Now, 2 of those shooters, as it were dressed up as police officers. They were dressed as uniformed police officers. And there were 2 men who were dressed in suits and ties and overcoats, and those 2 fake police officers were witnessed by individuals in the community as taking those other 2 men out by gunpoint. And so what happened was they really thought that they were arresting these 2 men, and this was after the shooting happened. Now, unfortunately, they never really were finding these people. And to this day, it's still considered an unsolved case.
Yeah, I see you changed my screen. So
I did.
Thank you. That's
You're
pretty
welcome.
cool. All right. Supernatural Lost Adventures. Hello. And I think I said hello to Irish Whiskey.
Yes, and we also have Tanya Lambert who came in, and also I believe Deb came in as well.
Irish Whiskey Paranormal brought up a good point, and I don't know that we have that in there because the dog wasn't a victim, but there was a dog that was in the garage as well.
Yes, and the dog didn't die in the shooting, but it did have to be put down later because it just was so traumatized by it, it just couldn't handle life anymore the way it was.
Right. So our goal of tonight is we want to go over what led up to this event, why such a gruesome thing took place. Mm-hmm. We're going to talk about a little bit more the event itself, who was involved with it, the fallout after the event, and the paranormal activity surrounding the event.
Okay.
All right, you lost chat.
No, I'm good. I'm
All
good.
right,
I'm
you
good.
good?
I'm good.
All right. Here
The
we
dog,
go.
by the way, is named Highball.
Highball. Yep. Who owned the dog? Does it say?
It was actually John May's dog.
John May.
The guy who was the mechanic. Yeah.
Okay. All right. So crime in Chicago leading up to the event. We're going to cover that, and it's kind of like important. There's some interesting stuff in here too that I didn't know. I learned a bunch of stuff doing the research here. Mm-hmm. All right. So the crime actually began around the 1850s. Now that the Chicago was established in 1830. Okay, so about 20 years, it started to get bad. Okay, the city was built on a swamp, and they had to raise the city 10 feet.
Yes, I didn't know that they raised the city.
I knew it was built on the swamp, especially the north part, like around Lincoln Park and things like that. And they had problems during the fair too, because that was all swampy area.
Yeah.
This led to the beginning of, the crime subculture. Crime ran rampant under the willows in the criminal underworld. That's where the term actually came from, the underworld.
Because
so they would build tunnels and little rooms and everything underneath the city in that 10 feet that they raised up, and they were in the underworld.
All right. And that's where most of the crime started.
Yes. And then they had another problem, too. I think it's in here. But it continued to grow to the 1920s. One of the main things that they didn't have enough police.
Not enough police?
Not enough police for the growth of the city. Okay? I don't know why that was hidden.
What was hidden?
Desmond Daughters. You didn't see that?
No.
Okay.
Mm-mm.
All right. So, by 1920s, there were more than 900 gambling and bookie joints. So many houses of prostitution that a cop or a city inspector they just couldn't break them up. They couldn't, there was just too many of them. Yeah.
And if you can't handle them all, you just kind of let it go by the wayside.
You just deal with it. And bribes in the city were totaling about $60,000 a year in the 1920s, which is close to $750,000. Well, over $750,000 now. Okay.
That's a lot of bribes.
This is 1920.
That's a lot of bribes.
So Chicago was like pretty nasty place.
Yeah. It was not some place to go hang out.
Right. All right. So we're going to go over some of the characters that kind of like I want to mention something here. Okay. There's a lot around crime in Chicago and history of Chicago and things like that we're kind of like skipping over. So from each one of these characters that we talk about, you could spin off and do years of research more into it. So if somebody's watching this on the playback or you guys in the chat and you think we're skipping over stuff, the point of this presentation is like to narrow down to what happened on
February 14th, 1929.
Right. So I did kind of skip around a little bit. I had to, or we would have been here for hours, because there's just so much.
Yeah. Before you get into Lady Vamp says, they say crime doesn't pay, but it did then.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah. So, go ahead.
All right. So these characters, this one, he's a little bit important here. Okay. Whoops, hit the wrong button. I want to hit that button. There we go. All right, so the 18th Amendment was, basically, hey, no more alcohol. None. Prohibition. Okay?
Yeah.
And that basically immediately created the black market.
Exactly. They weren't going to just let that go. And hey, if you weren't allowed to have it and you had a crime guy, what's he going to do? Right? He's going to create that market. He's like, hey, I can fix it. I can help you out here.
Yeah. All right.
What are you doing?
I don't know.
Okay.
We weren't on the screen there. I thought we were. Bootlegging was established as an industry. An entire industry. Okay. Now, Chicago was split up into territories and was managed by different groups. The guy who set that up and brought that together to make all of these crime bosses sit down and kind of we can make a lot of money here. Let's just get along. You take this territory, you take that territory. Was that guy right there that's showing there, Johnny Torrio. Okay?
Yes, let's split it up. Let's all make some money.
We're all going to make some money, and, we'll work together to not get caught and, that kind of thing.
Okay.
All right?
Mm-hmm. Sounds pretty good.
Sounds pretty good.
But as you know, with every good thing...
Yeah. Something's got to happen.
Yeah.
Until 1924. It was good for about 4 years. 1924 started the 5-year gang war. Okay?
Uh-oh.
That's right. On November 9th of 1924, the Northside gang leader Dion O'Banion was killed by members of the Southside gang. Which just so happens, the head of the Southside gang at the time was Johnny Torrio. Okay? Number 2 was Al Capone.
Okay.
All right?
Mm-hmm.
But it was probably started when O'Banion swindled Johnny Torrio out of $500,000 when he sold him a brewery that he knew was going to be raided. That one kind of ticked somebody off. Right? Here, go ahead, take it.
I don't want it.
I don't need that one. What we got going on in chat? Anything?
St. Louis, poor St. Louis during the dry time. They had a couple of manufacturers that came out of St. Louis, so
Yeah.
it was bad for them.
So let's talk about George Bugs Moran's rise to power. Okay? Now, of course, Capone's gang, or Johnny Torrio's gang, killed Dean O'Banion, which Jaime Weiss took over after that. So they tried to retaliate, okay, to take out Johnny Torrio. You take these guys off, they're coming back at you.
And the next,
right.
And, yeah.
Then there was another failed attempt. Now, there were several attempts, during these 4 years, but there was another failed attempt
there was a big
to
one.
go after Capone. Yeah, this was a big one. This was the one where they had like 5 or 6 different cars, and they drove by the restaurant where it was at and just kind of laid into it with the Tommy guns, and yeah. But they failed. So let's talk about Jaime Weiss a little bit. Okay, so now at this point,
he's
on our timeline, he's in charge of the Northside gang. Okay, number 2 is Bugs Moran.
Bugs Moran.
Okay. Mm-hmm. He was a Polish-American mob boss. He's the only man that Al Capone feared. This guy's an interesting character.
Yeah, I can't imagine Al Capone being afraid of anyone, really, just from what you hear about Al Capone. And then you look at this guy and you're like, he looks like a little skinny guy.
I don't think I put it on the slide. If I didn't, I'll make the comment about his brother.
No, I don't think you did.
It's not on the slide?
I don't think so.
But he once chased away at gunpoint a deputy U.S. Marshal who came to arrest a friend of his at a party. Okay? So the comment that his brother made, the only time I saw my brother in 20 years was when he tried to shoot me. Yeah, these are bad guys. These are really bad guys. Okay. Now, he was killed by Capone's gunmen on October 11th of 1926.
Which then puts Moran in
charge. Right.
Okay.
And here's an interesting little side note. He's also buried in the same cemetery as Al Capone and Dean O'Banion. These are 2 opposing people that hate each other. They're in the same cemetery.
Yeah.
All right. So the fighting raged for 5 years in the streets until it came down to... Whoop, I got to take this off here so we can see. 2 people. You have George Bugs Moran and Al Capone. Bugs Moran was the head of the Northside gang, and Al Capone was the head of the Southside gang. And these 2 people hated each other. They were constantly trying to take each other out, taking out each other's men. Budget Bushcraft, thank you very much. Appreciate that. Did you write it down? Yep.
I did. That's what all that squeaking was. You got this weird pen here.
All right, Remy Moore. Hello there.
Hello, and again, thank you to Budget.
Now, here's another guy that we need to talk about. Joe Aioli. Giuseppe Joe Aioli. Aiello.
Aiello.
Hello. Giuseppe Aiello.
Giuseppe Aiello. Oh, we weren't on the camera for me with my fingers, my Italian.
I'll put you back on the camera.
Okay.
You're worried
Giuseppe
about your Italian
Aiello.
card anyways.
That's right. Giuseppe Aiello.
Say it right. Okay. He was born in Sicily in 1890. Long time feud with Al Capone.
They did not get along.
Even though they were both Irish, they just did not get along.
Italian.
Yeah, or Italian. You're right. See, that's why I didn't get the nails. Thank you.
That's right. I just fixed it.
Appreciate it. All right. Now, in November of 1925, this is kind of why he didn't like Al Capone, but in November of 1925, Lombardo was named head of the, you want to say that?
Unione Siciliana.
Yeah, instead of him, and he believed Al Capone was responsible for it. So here's a question for chat. Do you know what the Unione Siciliana is? Any idea?
And while you're waiting for that, they are discussing in the chat that all these guys seem to have really big ears.
They do. I see that.
Mm-hmm. Yes. So the one says the mob, one says the Sicilian Union, Sicily Union. So
well, Tanya Lambert and Marie Moore and Happy Trails Hiking are all correct. That was considered the old mafia. Okay? Mm-hmm. These are the original guys that come over from Sicily. All right? And there was a branch in Chicago. So that's, yeah.
Okay.
Now you can see why.
Yes. And Budget just says, I'm sure they weren't Canadian.
They weren't Canadian, but they did deal with the Canadians to smuggle the whiskey down.
They needed that alcohol.
Right. Now, Giuseppe, he allied himself with Capone's enemies because he just didn't like Capone. He made several unsuccessful attempts to assassinate Capone. And he was secretly supported by Bugs Moran. Secretly.
Ooh, secrets.
Yes. Now, here was Moran's plan. He was going to eliminate all of Capone's Italian support. Okay, all the muscle around him. He was going to eliminate them one by one. And this was going to make Capone's gang more vulnerable so that they could go in and hit and take them out and then take over Chicago. Okay?
Mm-hmm.
That was the plan.
Okay.
You guys follow me so far? Antonio Lombardo.
Nice.
Now he tried to make peace and settle in the wars. You know, he tried to, come on guys, we got to calm down. Remember the original agreement. Let's get back to this treaty. We can make some money. We can all make money and be happy. Okay. He was Capone's former consigliere.
Now he's getting the talk of like the Italians.
Now, here's where this starts to get interesting. He was gunned down September 7th, 1928 by Aiello's
Close
men.
enough.
Okay? So this is Italians against Italians here. Which, by the way, the north side mob was a mixture of Irish and Polish and everything, and the south side was all Italian. So he was taken out.
He's gone.
He's gone.
Got it.
Really good friends with Capone. Gone.
Trying to make the peace.
Yeah. Then you got Patsy Lolordo. Okay. He was the head of the
Unione Siciliana.
Thank you.
No problemo.
He was killed in his apartment on January 8th, 1929 by Joe Aiello and members of the Moran's North Side gang.
So here's
very good friends with Al Capone. Very good friends.
Patsy.
Okay? Patsy was.
And so he was not pleased.
Absolutely not. This was the last straw. Capone was like, fed up. I'm done. I want them taken care of now. And all the little men and everything that was around Capone kept saying, "Oh, it's going to take us some time. We're gonna do this right." He goes, "No, now. I want them done now. Get rid of them all." Okay.
Happy Trail says, we might need a spreadsheet to keep track of who's still alive soon.
We're getting there. We're
nobody.
getting there. Pretty much everybody I talked about so far, except for Capone and Bugs, are, yeah, okay.
Yeah, by this point.
So Capone called for the hit. He said, I want it done. I want it done now. Then he goes to Miami. This is Capone's house in Miami.
Supposedly
Just recently sold for $14 million.
Oh, jeez. I thought he was in Miami.
No,
when
after the meeting.
planned.
After he said,
Okay.
I want him going down,
Okay.
he goes to Miami.
Okay.
Okay?
Okay.
All right. Everyone knew that Capone was behind the St. Valentine's Day massacre, but they could not prove it because he was in Miami at the time. Mm-hmm. It happened.
Yeah. Budget, by the way, says, get to the guys named Lasagna and Fettuccine.
Lasagna, fettuccine, Alfredo. All right. Yeah, he was at his home at the time. All right. One taken care of quickly and completely. In comes Jack Machine Gun Jack McGurn. Okay. Now, Al Capone had a whole, I mean, he had 600 gangsters on his payroll. Okay. He had some of the guys that were like his inner circle, and he's trying to get them to, hey, take care of this, get it done. And they're telling him it's going to take forever. This guy stands up and he says, well, I know a lot about Moran. I know where he lives. I know where his family is. I know where this is. Blah, blah, blah. All this other stuff, which impressed Capone, which I'm probably skipping ahead on the thing there.
It's right there. It's in there.
Okay. Yeah, knew the whereabouts, impressed Capone. So Capone said, okay, you take care of it. You organize it. You get it all done. Okay?
Mm-hmm.
Which, you know what? That would be scary. Wouldn't it be scary to imagine the stress? Al Capone says, all right, you take care of it. You get it done. Right? And you screw up, you might as well forget it.
Yeah, that's pretty true.
Forget about it.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah, that would be a lot of pressure.
Now, he brought in some outside hitmen. I mean, got to bring in outside people because there's like people crossing lines and, you know, all kinds of things going on. And, you know, so he brought in people from the Detroit area that they worked with to help smuggling some of the Canadian whiskey. And they were called the Purple Gang. Right? And Marianne's going to talk about them again later on.
They will come back up again.
That's right. So they used a fake delivery to lure Moran to the garage. So basically what that happened, they had another little guy who was supposedly delivering the whiskey make a delivery to the garage, the SMC Cartage Company. I said that correctly. Mm-hmm. And Moran's people pushed him around and gave him a hard time. So the next time, the little Italian guy called him up, said, hey, I got another delivery. Could we do the same deal? This was the good stuff. Now, remember, they were making some rot gut, bootleg, even pure alcohol kind of stuff. So Capone was bringing in Canadian whiskey, like the good stuff. So he says, I'll make another delivery, but you have to meet me to get it. I'm not going to deal with your men. This is how they were going to lure Moran to the garage. He says, okay, absolutely. I'll come down and I'll meet you myself and we'll get it taken care of.
Especially when he knew it was going to be Capone, like theoretically stolen from Capone.
Right.
He's like, I am for this.
Right. So they got a car and they disguised it like a police car. Okay? Like Marianne said there in the beginning, two men were stationed across the street. Two of Al Capone's men, two of the Purple Gang actually were stationed across the street. Now it's important, that building, you see that building right there? Hopefully you can see it. It's kind of smaller.
It's skinny.
We have another video coming out this week. That's a recipe video. It's going to be the next one after this, coming out Thursday. That's about that building. That's the building where the lookout was.
Yes.
Watching across the street for Moran to show up.
Watching for them to show up. Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. They were supposed to call when they saw Moran go into the garage. They were supposed to make a call. Hey, he's here.
Are we a go?
Are we a go? But they made a mistake. This guy right here, Wineshank, they thought that was Moran. He looked almost exactly like him. Same color clothes, everything. And they called and said, yep, he's there going. Two police officers with shotguns and two men in suits with submachine guns. That was the plan. They were going to go and just wipe out the Moran gang for good, plus
Moran. They
himself.
thought Moran was going to be there.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
Moran thought the meeting, at 10:30, and he was always late to everything. So he was walking towards the garage when he saw the police car, and he thought that they were getting raided. Somebody tipped him off. So he ducked out of the way and went into a
nearby cafe.
Yeah, a nearby coffee shop or whatever, just to kind of wait it out.
Yeah. Now, when this whole thing was all over, said and done, because they thought he was in there, they thought he was dead.
Yeah. They thought they took care of it.
That's going to be important, too. Yeah.
Oh, there's a blank one.
How'd that happen?
I don't know. We're supposed to be off the screen now.
Okay.
There we go.
All
right. So the St. Valentine's Day Massacre takes place. Which basically, they went in, they lined 7 people up against the wall and took them out. Okay, so here are the victims. Yeah, we're not on screen on this one. Okay. You have Albert Weinshack. Now, this is the guy that looked like Moran. He kind of does look like him. You see his picture up there. Oh, let's see, I got to draw. There we go. See, this is him right there. He kind of does look like Moran from the back. I mean, they were looking at him from across the street.
That's true. He was
and Moran was always, known to wear brown, and he had brown on. Mm-hmm. Okay. Adam Hare, he was the bookkeeper and business manager for the Moran gang. You had Peter Gusenberg. He was a frontline enforcer. And you also had his brother, who also was an enforcer. James Clark, also known as Albert Ketchelek. He was Moran's second in command.
That also will be important later.
That'll be important, okay?
James Clark, Moran's second
Then you
in
have
command.
poor John Maine, and I feel bad for this guy.
I feel bad for him, too.
Yeah. He was not a gangster, okay? He was just a mechanic, and that's a garage. He was just there working on a transmission of one of the gangster's cars.
Yeah. Now, he probably knew what was going on with those guys.
Oh,
Yeah, it's not like he was with them. Yeah, it's not like he was oblivious.
He had 7 kids. And look at him. Look how young he looks. Looks like a little...
Yeah, he looks 12.
He looks like a kid himself. So.
Yeah.
Okay. Then you had Dr. Schwimmer. Dr. Schwimmer was a...
Optician.
An optician that walked away from his practice to be a gambler.
Yeah. He must have been really good at it,
And he would go and hang around the in the garage and, So he wasn't really part of the gang, but...
Yeah. Yes. Right, so kind of those last two are kind of like, John May, poor guy's just a mechanic, and he's the one, by the way, who the dog belonged to, the Highball, who would eventually be put down. And then you got the guy who let's just quit my profession and become a gambler.
All right, so here's the aftermath. What happened afterwards? So, of course, both Capone and Moran were still alive, but Moran's gang was completely wiped out. All of his head guys were gone.
Right,
okay? But he had other henchmen and stuff that worked for him, but his head guys, number 2 guy, his bookkeeper guy, his 2 enforcers, gone. Okay?
Mm-hmm. Now, it was, I think it was Peter, right? Peter Gusenberg, who didn't die immediately.
Yes.
He died later at the hospital.
Garage. Yeah.
But he would not say who did it.
That's right. They asked who shot him, and he said no one. No one.
Yeah.
Yeah. You're right. And I didn't have it. The city of Chicago and all the people that lived in Chicago and the what's the word I'm looking for? Like the mayor and everybody was pleading with President Hoover to get involved. We need help here. This is just too much. I mean, the town was like they were fed up with all the gang wars and stuff. Now, it also sparked off what's called in May of 1929 what's called the Commission. Okay, this was a 4-day summit in Atlantic City. Does anybody know what the Commission is?
And while you wait for that, they seem to think that Lucky Luciano, they think he looks kind of like Lou Diamond Phillips.
Yeah. Maybe. Yeah, he does, a little bit. Maybe they're related somehow.
Perhaps. Happy Trail says, I have no idea. Tanya Lambert wants to know who Gusenberg was protecting. Basically, it was just keeping his mouth shut, keep the gangs,
Yeah, that was the old, like the mafia ways and gangster ways.
I don't
keep
talk.
your mouth shut and you don't say anything.
Yeah, even though he knew he was going to die. He had, 14 bullet wounds?
Yeah, 14 bullets.
He knew he was going to die, and he still wouldn't say it was those other guys, because he knew his guys were going to go and take care of it eventually. You know what I mean? So it was like, don't worry about it, Copper. I got this.
Yeah.
So
anyways, the commission was the new mafia. This was the formation of like the 5 families. I mean, we've all heard of that kind of stuff before, with the different families in the different areas in the nation. That was originally called the commission. And the person in place, the head of the commission was... I went one too far. Lucky Luciano, when they first formed it.
Oh, you didn't put him back over there. Were you going to?
No, I was looking at the name.
Oh.
That's all right. We're unrehearsed.
So, the Lou Diamond Phillip looking guy.
Yeah, the Lou Diamond Phillips guy. All right. Lucky Luciano. All right. So, now, the commission, though, is like, we got to get Al Capone under reins here.
Why?
Well... they were concerned that he was going to bring too much federal spotlight on the commission, on all the members of the mafioso, so to speak. Okay?
You mean he was attention getting?
He was attention getting.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
They wanted him to take his gambling empire, split it up, and give it to the commission.
Oh yeah, like that was going to go over well.
Yeah. Yeah. But I think he was warned. Okay? Now, remember Joey
Aiello.
Is it Giuseppe?
Giuseppe Aiello.
Joey Aiello, remember him? They appointed him the head of the Chicago, the old mafia, which, there was problems about that before, and he already took out 2 of the... Yeah.
Again,
Al Capone screwed up when he did this.
Well.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right, so this gets to you.
Yeah, this becomes my
more of the fallout.
This is my kind of... Yes.
Are we okay with on camera here, or we'll see?
What do you mean, are we okay with on camera? Oh, yeah. Okay. I left you spaces for that.
All right,
yeah.
Go ahead.
All right, so in the aftermath, of course, there was a lot of cleanup at the Clark Street address, and the coroner came in, and he was trying his hardest. He wanted to figure this out, and so he collected a lot of evidence. What he collected from the scene was just a ton of bullet casings and blood samples. Like, he took a lot. They took pictures, everything. Well, he actually named a group of local people.
Oh, wait a minute. This is riddled with mistakes. Our presentation has mistakes? So many mistakes. This is riddled with mistakes. What?
Oh, I think... everyone made them. I'm thinking that they're thinking
everybody.
that
okay. Oh, yeah. These guys. Now, here's the thing too.
Because otherwise, we want to know what we did wrong.
Yeah. Where's the typos?
Yeah.
Okay. Now, here's another thing too. We were talking when we mentioned that they tried to like.
They're saying gangster mistakes. Okay.
Everybody get along. We could all make money. At the time when this commission was formed, Al Capone's gang was making $6 million a year in 1929. So this was all just pure greed and hatred. You know what I mean? It's like if they would have
vindictive behaviors.
Got along. You know what I mean? Yeah. Okay, sorry. Go ahead. No, I thought we had mistakes.
Yeah, so I was like, what?
We spent so much time.
All right. Anyways.
And the internet's working. I shouldn't have said that.
Don't tempt fate. Oh, goodness. Okay.
That is bank. $6 million in 1929.
Yeah.
I didn't look up how much it is now because it probably make me want to vomit.
Probably. Yeah. And Happy Trail says, "Can't we all just get along?" Yeah. Bobster's having crumpets and tea. Cheerio, mates.
If anybody wants to bring up an inflation calculator and look that up, well, what $6 million would be in 2020
from 1929?
Yeah, put that in chat. That would be. I didn't do it. I was going to, and I'd like, oh no, that number's too big and won't fit on the screen. All right, did I click?
No, but anyways, all right. So the coroner comes in. He collects evidence, everything like that. He's trying to put pieces together, try to figure out who did this. And so he names a group of local businessmen, the leaders in Chicago, to investigate the murder. Why is that going to happen? They think it's the police.
$75 million a week.
A year.
No, that was a week.
Oh, I thought you said it was a year.
No, a week.
Oh, wow. That's
a lot of money.
That's a lot. I thought you said it was $6 million a year.
No, $6 million a week.
Oh, that's a week. Okay. All right. Wow. Okay.
That's crazy. That's how much money was coming into the Capone organization. Now, he had 600 mobsters on his payroll and all that other stuff, but no wonder he had a house in Miami and Tampa and all over the place. You know what I mean? Cars, whatever. And, when Al Capone died, he was only 33 years old. 33.
Yeah, way younger than us. And he had all that cash. Crazy. Sorry, we don't have that underworld here anymore.
Yeah.
Not quite the same. Anyway, as I was saying, he named the coroner's jury. He called it the coroner's jury, and it was of local businessmen. And as I was asking, why would he have done this? Why wouldn't he use the police to investigate this? They thought the police did the killings.
The police were being and they were being paid off anyways in Chicago. It's like.
Yeah. So he kind of really wanted this figured out. The local businessmen, they wanted this figured out too. So their first concern was to determine if, in fact, it was police who were involved in this. That was like, let's figure this out first.
They spent some time and money on making the car look exactly like a police car, the uniforms. I mean, these guys look like the real deal to all of the witnesses.
Right. Yeah. So they were concerned about that. So that's important. Mm-hmm. All right. So what did they do was they said, well, we got to figure this out. There's this guy up in New York. His name is Dr. Goddard. And he is somebody I think we should call in. So they call in Dr. Calvin Goddard. Now, Dr. Calvin Goddard, in 1925, a few years earlier, established a firearms examination bureau. It was up in New York, and they called it the Bureau of Forensic Ballistics. Of course, ballistics is involved in looking at bullets, trajectories, all that kind of stuff. So he actually develops the whole field of forensic ballistics.
Yeah, so this is stemming from the St. Valentine's Day Massacre and all this stuff.
He was called in to work that case because he was the expert. He was the guy who created the whole field. Mm-hmm. So what did he prove in this, creation of the field was that, hey, we can make sure that we can identify that there are no two revolvers that will be machined exactly alike. And then based on their machining, if they're not machined exactly alike, then we can identify individual bullets from individual guns. So every gun is going to make specific characteristics. We still use this today. And so he was able to show that a bullet taken from a murder victim would actually be able to be tied specifically to a weapon. This is important here, because he gets presented with the bullets and shell casings recovered from the St. Valentine's Day Massacre crime scene. He is given over 70 of these, by the way. But his first task, of course, was what the coroner's jury wanted to know was, hey, were any of the police weapons involved in this. So he determines that all of the bullets were from .45 caliber shells, and they were all from these Thompson submachine guns. Now, he concludes that 50 of them were from one machine gun, from one Tommy gun, and 20 were from another. So he's looking at 2 different weapons, but both of them Tommy guns. Okay? So what he does is he goes and he obtains the Thompson submachine guns that the police own, and he does test firing of them. He puts them under what we call a comparison microscope. Basically, it's a microscope that you put, that you have 2 different lenses that you can put 2 different items in, and you can look at them at the same time and line up the striations from the different markings that the guns will make on the bullet, or on the casing for that matter. He lines them up and he's like, yep, nope, none of the weapons that the police have fired these shells. So he basically clears the police, and this leads the investigation to believe that those shooters were not actually police at all. They were just police in disguise. So it kind of solidifies their idea that it was not the police. They were so impressed with his work that they said, you know, I would love to have you come here and make a lab here in Chicago, but it needs to be private. So he's like, sure, I'll do that. So this is created. It's headed by Goddard. It's centered at Northwestern University, out of the public sector. It's in private control. Why? Because there's so much corruption with the police. They didn't want the police to have anything to do with this. They wanted something that would be,
separate.
Yes. Definitely not being bribed.
Yeah.
So they eventually expand this. It's going to have way more than just ballistics. They'll bring in other things like document analysis. They even eventually will use and test truth serum there, which is kind of cool. Like,
wow, you're
we're
really
gonna get
happy
the truth.
about that.
We're going to get the truth out of you one way or the other.
So, but wait, you slipped that in my coffee?
If only you knew. No.
That's what I live with.
All right.
I sleep next to this.
Now, what's even cooler than the fact that they create this, eventually, 2 years later, the FBI crime lab is based on what they've created at Northwestern that Goddard is in charge of, which is really cool. So it starts the FBI crime lab, too. So what about those weapons? What about those weapons? Well, those Thompson machine guns do eventually get found. For a while, they weren't finding them, but it was about 10 months later that they did find them. See, there was a guy named Fred the Killer Burke. He had them. Now, what happens is, he's this guy from St. Louis, Happy Trails Hiking. He was actually not born there, but he kind of he moved to St. Louis, and he joins up with this group called the Egan Rats. These are supposed to be the notorious crime syndicate in St. Louis. Happy Trails, if you know them, give them a shout out. Well, he eventually has some issues. He kills a couple people, whatever. So he has to move. So he moves to Michigan, where he becomes an associate of, here we go, the Detroit Purple Gang. Remember, we mentioned them earlier as they were...
She said, Fred, he lives down the street.
What's really fun is Fred did live down the street from a guy who turned him in. But anyway, he goes to Chicago, and he becomes associated with Capone. But remember, they said, the Detroit Purple Gang is involved in this, right? So here's a guy, he moves in, he kind of pairs up with Capone, he's part of the Purple Gang.
Yeah. Al Capone was so far removed from this, there's no way that they would have been able to
make anything stick.
unless somebody within his inner circle would have talked, and that would have never,
not back then,
ever happened.
Not
because these guys were making bank, man.
Yeah. Anyways, he becomes one of the prime suspects in the case, but he kind of gets wind of this, and he goes into hiding. He goes back to Michigan. He hides out in rural Michigan. December 14th of 1929, 10 months later, he is involved in an automobile accident. He's in St. Joseph, Michigan. He's in this accident, and this poor guy, Patrolman Charles Skelly, comes along, and he tries to intervene in the accident kind of cleanup. Burke shoots him dead. And then he takes off. Now he's taken off, and he's barreling down the road, and he crashes his car. He wrecks his car. It's on the edge of town, and he gets out. He commandeers another vehicle so that he can make his getaway. I thought he was a smart guy, but it turns out maybe not so much. They all make these mistakes, right? Well, he left all kinds of incriminating stuff in the car, all kinds of stuff that had his name all over it. The one
that he wrecked.
He wrecks the car, he leaves it, he leaves behind all these papers and things that have his name on it. So they find it out, they go to his house, they go to pick him up. When they get there, they find this arsenal of guns, 2 of which are Thompson machine guns. They take these guns and the ammunition, because he's supposedly one of the guys who's, looked at as a prime suspect in the massacre. They take him, they send him off to Dr. Goddard. Guess what? They're a match. So Goddard test fires bullets from these Tommy guns and finds out that they are indeed a match to those bullets that were taken from the victims. So they've got their guns. He, of course, he's not a guy to stay put. He flees again. He flees to Missouri. Probably closer to St. Louis, but he goes back to Missouri. A local guy who reads this magazine called True Detective, he starts looking at the guy and he's like, he looks an awful lot like this guy in the magazine that's wanted for this massacre and for this murder of this police officer. He's like, I think this is the guy. Now, originally, he tells the police this, and they're like, yeah, okay, whatever, and they just blow him off. But eventually, he's, persistent, and they end up they arrest him. He's convicted of the murder of the police officer he killed at that car accident scene. He goes to prison for life. He only lasts 9 years, though, because he has a heart attack and dies. But he's never looked at and persecuted or prosecuted for the St. Valentine's Day Massacre. They got him for the murder of the cop. We're good to go. He's in prison for life. So they never prosecute him for the St. Valentine's Day massacre, even though he was in possession of the guns and he was already a prime suspect. Crazy. What do you guys think about that?
All right, what we got going on in chat?
Budget says Janie's got a gun. Actually, it was Burke's got a gun, but the song worked well for Janie.
All right, you guys ready to start hearing some of the leading up to the paranormal? We got a little bit more, and then we're going to start talking about the
this next piece leads right into the paranormal.
Yeah, we're going to get right into it. So, man, we covered history, we covered forensic. The only thing we didn't cover is travel, but
Burke did enough travel on his own there, right? He was traveling all over.
So let's talk about paranormal. We'll cover the whole thing here.
All right.
All right, here we go. Eastern State Penitentiary, which was another location we've been to and we've actually seen.
Yeah, this is our photograph of his
Al
cell.
Capone's cell in Eastern State Penitentiary. Now, let's get back to that commission part.
Back to the commission. All right.
All right. Now, something happened, and they don't know why he did this. Okay? They don't know. It just doesn't make sense. Capone is stopped. He's walking the streets of Philadelphia. And they stop him, and they find a concealed weapon. Now, my theory is, this is a theory, I can't prove this historically, so historians don't yell at me in the comments.
Here you go.
My theory is the commission told Capone, you got to get out of here for a while to lay low. Okay?
Okay.
So, he gets picked up, he's going to get thrown in prison for a while. Okay? And actually, he did. He was sentenced to 1 year in Eastern State Penitentiary. Again, why this happened, nobody really knows. Okay? But he tips the arresting officer $20,000. Okay? Yeah.
Why not?
Thanks.
Yeah. Now this was in Philly, so he's going along with going, hey, it works in Chicago.
Here we go with the historian. Lies. I see it. Lies. All lies.
Yeah, I'm
going to try to bring us back up on screen here.
Okay, go ahead. Bring us back up on screen.
All right, there we go.
Yeah, I don't know. Desmond Donners has to go. It's nearly midnight where he's at. So thanks for stopping by, and just come back and watch the
come back and you can watch
part.
it at 56 minutes. You can watch the rest of the paranormal part. We don't have really that much more. So, all right. So Capone and Jimmy the Ghost. Ooh. Okay, we heard about this when we were in Eastern State. We did. Too.
Yeah.
All right. So while he was at Eastern State, he started getting bothered like at night. Like he would like just wake up like other inmates and guards.
Can
and
you
stuff.
go back one slide real quick? Check out his cell. I just have to say,
I'm blocking it.
It's not by much. Not by much.
That's his cell.
Not by much. That's his cell at Eastern State. He was allowed to have all this stuff in his cell.
Yeah, if you go back and look at some of our other Eastern State penitentiary, that place is like really. There's not much in them cells.
It's very plain. His is decked out.
Yeah.
His is decked out. So here he is. He's hanging out in Eastern State, and he's in that cell with all that cool stuff, and suddenly at night he's like,
he's yelling at somebody.
Jimmy, leave me alone.
Yeah. So could this be the ghost of James Clark? That's what people think. The number 2 man of Bugs Moran is coming and haunting Al Capone.
Yeah,
okay?
Because these were individual cells at Eastern State Penitentiary. There was one person per cell. So there wasn't anybody else in the cell with him.
Right. So he would yell, at night, Jimmy, leave me alone. And then other guards would like walk by and hear him having a conversation with somebody. And, it's just weird stuff. Okay.
Yeah.
Now,
Inspired John says his cell is nicer than my room.
Yeah. Now, when Capone returned back to Chicago, it was completely different for him. I mean, he used to be like this celebrity, and everybody loved him, and then everything went down. When he came back, he was public enemy number 1. The people of the town just hated him. So he spent most of his time in the Lexington Hotel. He rented out the top floor, and that's where he hung out there. And his bodyguards would storm into his room at night because the same thing was happening. He would be screaming at something, and they thought somebody was there. And here he's, screaming at this
ghost
spirit.
Maybe? Yeah.
Okay. It even got so bad that they brought in a psychic called Alice Britt. Her name was Alice Britt. I was looking for a picture of her and I couldn't find it. But Al Capone wanted her to conduct a seance to get rid of this thing. And didn't work. It didn't work. Because even Capone's valet, Jaime Cornish, claimed to have seen the apparition. Budget bushcraft for the 1 ear. Okay. And
Thank you, budget.
The spirit continued to haunt Al Capone to the end of his life. Even when he was arrested and eventually went to Alcatraz, it was the same thing. Something was bothering him until, his death.
Yeah.
So.
And it's interesting that Jaime also said that he saw the apparition itself, too.
Yes. Now, those of you, if you know anything about Al Capone, you know that he died due to syphilis. And he didn't get it treated, okay? And eventually went to his brain. So was it delusions that he was having, or was it this spirit? And there was people at the time thought this was actually happening. They didn't know he had syphilis because he didn't tell anybody. He didn't get treated because he was like embarrassed about it. But yeah. All right, so let's talk about the location now. Some of the paranormal claims where the SMC Cartage
Company
garage was. Okay. Which, by the way, that's our picture. Friday's video, check it out. We were there on site where the garage was.
Yes, it's now a parking lot.
Video. The couple that owned the building after the massacre was over, they renovated and they opened up an antique shop in the front, and people were coming by just to kind of check it out type thing, but they never bought anything pretty much, and they eventually went out of business. But they did state, this place is like creepy haunted.
Yeah, they even put up, if this is the same couple I'm thinking of, they even put up like a barricade over the actual wall because people would just come just to see it, and they just didn't want to have anything to do with it.
So the building was eventually tore down after release of the movie St. Valentine's Day Massacre, which, by the way, there's an affiliate link, if you haven't seen that movie, down in the description where you can get that movie, and I'm going to talk about it here in a little bit because it's a pretty good movie. Still today, the paranormal reports that's related to this location, and this is why I wanted to go there, because it's been in the database for a while.
Yes.
All right, light anomalies. Mists have shown up. Disembodied voices and screams. Sounds of machine guns. Faint noises of a dog barking.
Yeah.
When you know the history, you know there was a dog in the garage.
That is probably the spirit of Highball, is what people believe.
Or an imprint. I think this was more residual stuff, probably. Okay. Mm-hmm. All right. Now, with every Behind the Haunting at the end here, we ask you questions. Please come back and leave them down in the comment section. These are the questions that we are asking. And I need to take us off the screen so people can see
the questions. All right,
here we go. Did you know all the details surrounding the St. Valentine's Day Massacre? Number 2, do you know that the city of Chicago is actually raised 10 feet? Number 3, did you know about all of the criminal activity leading up to the gang wars? I knew about the gang wars. I didn't know all the stuff leading up to it. I was like, geez. Okay. Do you really think that that was the spirit of James Clark haunting Al Capone, or was he just like going, Now, why other spirits didn't come? If it was like deliria or delusional, all of them would have, I would think, in his thinking, in his mind. But why that particular one, number 2? Bugs Moran's number 2. Mm-hmm.
Could it have been another James, another Jimmy, or was it specifically James Clark too?
All right, now here's a little sidewall thing. If you think the casinos in Vegas were already established, do you think that Al Capone would have been finally put in prison for tax evasion? Ooh.
Yeah, now you were mentioning, why you wanted to talk about that a little bit, just the idea that,
Well, that eventually not
Las Vegas was pretty much crime.
Yeah,
started.
It was started by the
mobsters,
the commission.
So would they have been able to launder all the money out that way?
Yeah, that's the reason why they started it. It was a good legal way to.
Mm-hmm. Would he have gotten caught?
Right. All right. So does anybody have any questions for us?
Yes, Lori, he was convicted for tax evasion, but the question that he was kind of coming up with was, hey, do you think he would have been caught for it if they would have had Las Vegas up and running and he could, send out his money there?
Yeah, because how are you going to launder that amount of money? I mean, you couldn't own enough businesses. Now, a casino, I could see you probably launder all kinds of money through, because back then, now they're all regulated and all that stuff, but yeah.
So Inspired John says 1, no. 2, no. 3, yes. 4, I don't know. And 5, Magic 8 Ball says ask again.
All right, so copy that, and when this is done, come back and paste it in the comments. Thank you.
Irish Whiskey wants to know how old the dog was. I'm not sure how old the dog was, But
it was a German Shepherd.
It was a German Shepherd. It looked fair. Like, there's a picture. We'll link to it later.
And I want to mention that
he looks
too.
fairly old. He doesn't look like a puppy or anything like that.
Yeah, he looks older. You notice we didn't use any crime scene photos. We did use some terminology that probably not going to be YouTube friendly, whatever. And we didn't do crime scene photos and things like that. However, our blog does not have those restrictions. So we are going to put crime scene photos. We'll put a picture of highball and things like that. So watch for the blog coming out. If you don't know when it's going to come out, you need to be part of our newsletter. If you're not part of our newsletter, what? panicd.com/em. Join the newsletter, because that's where I put all the links of all this other stuff and tips and all kinds of things. And
that?
Yep. Go ahead and join our newsletter, and that'll probably come out Sunday night. So watch your email, and there we go. Now, videos that we have coming out. Marianne has a recipe video coming out Thursday that is
somewhat related
pizza pot pies.
Yes, it's...
Which happens to be the signature dish of that restaurant that's right across the street in the building where Al Capone's men were waiting for.
Looking out. Watching for Moran to come in the door.
So that's coming out Thursday. Friday is our location video, where we're on location at the SMC Cartage Company. We're standing right there filming.
Yes.
Which I'm going to mention this now because it's probably not going to be in the video. But in the video I said, man, this is going to be quick. It's 18 degrees out here. We're going to do this real quick and get out of here. On February 14th, 1929, when this happened at 10:30 a.m., which was close to the time we were there, it was 18 degrees out. I think I mentioned that to Kate in a Twitter chat, and I'm like, wow, that is weird.
Yeah.
That is weird. Now, the 1967 movie St. Valentine's Day Massacre is almost 95% historically accurate. That's why I love the movie. Okay, so if you want to know more, there's a link down below in the affiliates where you can go and get it and get the movies. Like, I don't remember how it was. I think it was $9.95, whatever. Through Amazon, if you haven't seen the movie. The only part that is not historically accurate is when Al Capone goes to kill...
Aiello.
Yeah, he doesn't. He doesn't. It's like Aiello dies way after the St. Valentine's Day Massacre and wasn't personally killed by Al Capone. Yeah. That's the only thing. I don't know why they changed that in that movie. Everything else is historic to the point where, okay, now get this. This is what I read and I went, wow. The point where they go in and they shoot the guys, they all fall in the location, the exact same location according to a crime scene photo. They're laying there in the same location. That's how historically accurate it is. I love that.
Yeah.
I love that.
Yeah.
So, then again, please come back and answer those questions, leave a comment. And is there any other questions in chat?
Well, not really a question so much as I think it was Lady Vamp said, you could put it all on Patreon with a big smile. And speaking of Patreon, you do have another video that you got.
There is another video coming out on Patreon. If you're $1 a month or more Patreon supporter, you're going to get it. Sunday's video is going to talk about the curse of the bricks from the garage. And there were some other things that we were throwing in there too. What was the other stuff?
I don't remember.
There's some other stuff we're going to throw in there.
There were a couple other ones.
It's some pretty cool stuff.
Yeah.
The curse of the wall is actually quite interesting. Yeah. It's so good we should have put it on as a regular video. But you know what? Now, we love you Patreons. You're keeping us going. So that's just going to be for Patreons. That's coming out Sunday.
Yes. Yeah. So let's see here. We've got Inspired John saying recipe: how to poison your husband over 3 years.
Oh, don't say that. Wait a minute. I've been sick for 3 years.
I know you have.
Holy cow.
That's what makes it even funnier. I mean, not really, you know.
Please don't make me spit the coffee out on it.
It's actually kind of 13 years because you did get sick right after we got married. But the last bout has been like 3 years. I'm just Yeah. Oh, dear.
Man. All right, guys, we're going to let you go. It's been an hour and 10 minutes. Holy cow.
But I think you did a lot of coverage there in that hour. So
that was a lot of research.
We hope you enjoyed it and can see a little bit of why maybe some of these locations have some hauntings that are associated with the St. Valentine's Day Massacre.
Yeah, and I wanted to cover leading up to it. I've heard about St. Valentine's Day Massacre. That's why we went to the site. But I didn't know, like, what was the reasoning behind all 7 guys in there at one time and get it wiped out. And that's why I wanted to dig deep into this and figure it out.
And I wanted to add in some of the aftermath, you know, what how did we get the FBI crime lab and all that kind of stuff. So yeah.
All right, folks, we're going to wrap it up.
All right.
You ready? Anything else?
No, I was just reading chat, that's all. Okay.
All right, folks, till next time.
Thanks for watching.
And happy hunting. If you like this episode of Behind the Haunting, make sure you hit that like button and leave us a comment below. Also, if you'd like to see more videos from Panic D videos in the future, make sure you subscribe and ding that bell so you get notified the next time we post a video or go live.